The rise of anti-SJW content is going to be just tremendous. It is happening right before our eyes. Want to know why I'm saying this? Is because there's a massive infighting shift right now between video essayists such as FT Signifier himself and debate bros, basically live streamers who confront actual conservatives or people who have hot takes on issues, right? And the video essayist has been the one that have basically been stirring up this debate, mainly because they believe in the purity culture, in the sense of if you have any dirty past or blemishes on your record whatsoever, you don't deserve to be a part of LeftTube truly understanding and making these ideas, which I really find kind of weird. And also, Shark made a good video on reviewing the video, because I would say a decent portion of this video up until the point of him talking about debate bros was really good, because it's talking about, you know, the potential racism in LeftTube, how very few black creators are, you know, platformed because of people only wanting to cover famous white creators, which I'll get to in a minute. And he also said stuff like, because the algorithm isn't that necessarily friendly to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hour long video essay content unless it's like extremely high quality, right? Like there's some really good videos in that sense, and I mean really good content in that sense, and this good hour long worth of video is where I'd be like, it's a great video if you just stop here. But after this, it gets a little bit, I want to say, controversial, for lack of better words, because you're going to be fighting against debate bros themselves. Now, I guess the definition of debate bros can just be whatever you feel like at the time, because they don't consider Hassan a debate bro, even though he totally is. He doesn't debate people, he debates his chatters, right? So I'm just looking forward to see what he has to say here. Let's just find out.
Because I know as soon as I start calling people racist, the first thing they're going to do is get offended and click off the video. And that's why I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is talk about white habitus. And to explain this, let's talk about debate bros.
His position is that you are overstating how bad she is and using things that aren't 100% true to justify, just like the stuff you said about Biden. Everything I said about Biden is true, you fucking idiot!
Like, this scares me that are literally like fucking like days before a debate. If you're white, hates Porpoise Kansas, it doesn't make sense. There is no good reason.
The debate bro corner of YouTube is most similar to the overall energy and origins of the Augies I talked about at the beginning of this video. Except instead of long form content that's mostly them ranting, they are still ranting, but usually in response to somebody else's content or on a particular topic. So no, I guess it's exactly the same in a lot of ways. The biggest difference is the usage of the live stream chat format, which allows them to have immediate feedback on what they're saying and immediate reinforcement that what they're doing is, if not right, then at least effective for their intended goal, which is to promote leftism.
I think like one of the biggest galvanizing or fracturing aspects is the debate bro stuff. The discourse has shifted from BreadTube is a thing, it's the video essayists, they're growing, to creators talking about BreadTube as, well, now the debate streamers, because they are leftists, are included in BreadTube. No, because they are prominent and have large audiences, critiques not only aren't as salient or they don't go as well, there's quite a lot of conflict because they're already big, they kind of have this confidence aspect and this a little bit of demagoguery and a little bit of affirmation from streaming all day and talking about stuff. And it's not that they're not talking about issues, it's that there are blind spots.
This is way too close to my face.
So I feel like the issue with this as general is they're more along the lines of, I guess, like I mentioned before, if you have any edginess to you whatsoever, if your issues aren't 100% polished, if you don't fully spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5, 6 hours debunking one specific point, and instead you're debunking a person in general, you're seen as a blemish on the perfect image of the elite form of BreadTube. You know, the ContraPoints, you got the H-Bomber guys, you got the other people, I can't name them at the moment, right? And this is weird because like his issue isn't the fact that they're discussing issues. He's said it multiple times. The issue is the fact that they are live streamers being live streamed and talking about issues in a live format. It seems like they're more against live streaming instead of being against the issues that they're talking for. It's very confusing because it almost feels like they don't want to see people attack points that are antagonistic toward their own. They just want you to constantly talk about the vagueness of said points without directly confronting these people, which isn't how you address and solve any problems in these communities like fully. Like you can't convert people by just constantly just doing 3-hour videos that take 4 months to make, because in that 4-month time span, a bunch of people got radicalized at that point, to the point where when that video drops, nobody fucking cares anymore because that issue is just long gone, right? So like, we have to get direct at the heart. We have to use both. We have to unify. We have to stand together, brothers. We have to have video essays to make shit look pretty and tell everybody that, hey, you know, this is what communism is. This is what capitalism is. And this is, so we need people like that who make it look pretty and make it look nice and make it worthwhile and make it, you know, basically seem like a luxury dining experience whenever you want to consume political content. We also need people who are in the trenches just beating motherfuckers' asses every single day of the fucking life, trying to convert people 1-to-1, 10-to-10 by directly arguing with the points. Like Destiny had a debate with Mark Collette on white genocide. That's a good thing. He should be doing that. That's fantastic. I may have problems with Destiny, but that is a perfect thing to do. But the thing is, they see what I just said there. They see I may have problems with Destiny and just drop it right there. They don't see what he could be doing as a good thing. They just have problems with him. Therefore, everything he does is problematic. And that is not how we, as a leftist, unify and direct change. We are actually fracturing our own movement by just splitting off the people we don't like and putting them in a box, and they're not real leftists. I just fucking wasted to me.
That's better. This formula for content is enjoyed by creators of various political ideologies in these stream spaces, mainly because it probably lends itself more to parasocial relationships than other forms of this type of media.
Okay, I am so sorry. I will address these points as well, bit by bit, because they are just tickling my brain. To suggest that Twitch streaming is infinitely parasocially more attached than this format here is insane. This format and Twitch streaming are on the same magnitude of parasocial attachment. The only difference is with Twitch streaming, it's just more profitable. You get to directly pay the motherfuckers a lot quicker and get the response, dopamine response a lot quicker because you are directly seeing them respond to your shit live. But the comment section is the equivalent of a live comment section in a Twitch streamer's box. So I don't know where that pedestal's coming off as well. It's very odd as well. But it's very weird, and it feels like a bit pretentious in that essence for sure. And again, I feel like these people are against the format of live streaming because conservatives do it, or because the people who live stream are very aggressive. I think that's what it is mainly.
But debate bros, as we call them, are unique in that they are A, left-leaning, at least ostensibly, and B, get their name because they do debates on their platform. And I put debates in quotes here because these aren't actual debates. They don't usually have moderators. It's mostly them arguing against another person. It's a argument. They're argument bros.
That's semantics. Because I've seen debates with moderators that go to utter shit because either the moderator isn't leaning one way or the other, the moderator doesn't do anything, or the moderator is too involved. So the thing is too, these motherfuckers also, these people also deal with debates with moderators. So to say that them semantically not having debates and trying to debase them by saying they're having arguments, therefore making their entire platform useless and futile, isn't even addressing why what they're saying is bad. It's not addressing why their content is bad. You're just addressing that you don't like it, how it is unpalatable for you to enjoy it in a watching sense, which I'll be honest. I'll give him this. I'll give him this much credit. It is and acquires a certain amount of it is a required taste to enjoy debate bro content. It's like it's acquired taste to enjoy 2-hour long video content like this. Since I'm on a debate bro aesthetic side, I can't be bothered to watch 2-hour long videos like this. But I can't watch a 2-hour, 3-hour long debate with someone just going back and forth. It's all about aesthetics. So I guess like putting that and making yourself on a soapbox more elitist is the wrong word here. I guess more, I don't know, fucking, you seem more high of yourself if you view content that isn't debate. I'm trying to grasp what his real problem with this issue is, other than saying I don't like debate bros and debate content. Because if that's like one of the main core issues, then I feel like I'm gonna be repeating the same argument over and over again. But I'm gonna keep going regardless.
Hold on. This is my favorite. Hold on. Her sister was a witch, right? And what was her sister? A princess.
These debates are often against people with significantly opposing viewpoints. And I'm just going to keep it real. If you haven't already figured out, I don't really fuck with debate bros. I'm going to resist being extra uncharitable and doing a montage of all these snippets and bad takes that I could find, because I don't want to poison the well too much here. And I don't want to reduce them to their worst moments, because I wouldn't want anybody to do that to me. And furthermore, to be charitable, I don't individually think that these are bad people or even that they need to be ousted from the left. I think that that very concept of ousting people is part of the problem, really. And who am I to do that in the first place? I'm a near 40-year-old boomer. And to be fair, I think some of the issues with debate bros are emblematic with the problems of online left and LeftTube as a whole. See, if the origins of BreadTube or LeftTube were greatly to offer counter arguments to racists and fascists and to be venues for de-radicalization for mostly young straight white men, like if this was a war of sorts, then the debate bros were the frontline fighters in those battles. While PhilosophyTube and H-Bomber Guy were the generals providing high-level and in-depth arguments against these fascist ideologies, the debate bros were the skirmishers and the foot soldiers. It was Destiny and Hassan and Vosh and Xanderhall and probably some others that I don't know about who thrashed at the forefront, regularly debating with professed white supremacists and other deplorables, battling for the souls of their fellow edgelords. And all snark aside, I'm not going to poo-poo the role that plays in leftist discourse. I do think you need people with lived experience on the forefront of such a movement, engaging with their peers in a way that people outside of that group can't do. You need that to support the growth out of harmful and destructive ideologies. That's partially the basis for this channel. I was not always a progressive and forward-thinking intersectional scholar about gender and
Okay, I like this so far. Maybe I did jump the gun, but I like this so far.
masculinity and feminism and whatever else. It took me to spend time dismantling toxic masculinity and patriarchy within myself to get to this point. And I think as a man with lived experience who understands the nature of black masculinity, I am better equipped than my black female contemporaries for engaging with this group. But there should be some parameters. See, debate bros, much like the warrior classes that they play in their RPG games, don't know how to do much else but fight. And their viewers tune in not to really learn anything, but for blood sport. Their fandom hinges greatly on parasociality. These guys don't have a lot of original ideas or assessments. They have a baseline knowledge of leftist theory, which, I mean, that's all I really have myself. And of course, they stay abreast of current topics because that's their job, but they severely lack an effective praxis into the content that they are often responding to.
So you're basically saying, oh, this is okay. So I did watch Non-Compete's video saying Vosh manipulative liar, and one Non-Compete's entire point, I'm not releasing the video, his entire point was saying that Vosh has read enough theory, therefore he's wrong. So I feel like it's the same premise here, in that he's stating that because debate bros are so good at rhetoric, that's all they do and that's all they're known for and all they're attractive for, therefore they don't know that much about the content, they just want to talk about it consistently and argue about it the entire time. I feel like you're able to shit on debate bros for being toxic and loud while addressing the content they make, right? Like, for example, if someone was like toxic and loud and shit talking, and then you actually hear their arguments, hear the points, and the argument's just absolute dog shit, and they have no idea what they're talking about, this argument makes sense. But since he's not bringing up like, well, I guess I'll wait and see before I even jump to that conclusion. But my idea is, if he doesn't bring up an example of someone, a specific person or two, who was constantly just being loud and abrasive without having any knowledge on this topic whatsoever, then I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. But if without that as a concept, then it almost seems like you are mad at debate bros yelling at people and not liking that content, which you address though, like, right, like de-radicalization is key for helping people understand that their points of view isn't as rational as it should be, and helping them get out of those ways. You also understand that reaching out with similarities is very helpful in that point as well. But at the same time, you just, again, it's like just not liking the content. So I guess I'll just wait to see what he says.
What they have are strong personalities and skills of sophistry. And for now, their ideological basis is left-leaning. So their fans tune in to watch them just talk, make jokes, play video games, and react to the more in-depth work of others, sometimes for hours. And to be fair, if I had it
Okay, that's weird. That's weird. I'll wait to see what it says though.
in me to watch the 3 and 4 hour streams of these guys talking and playing video games, I doubt I would have anything negative to say about 95% of what they do on stream. And I understand that when you're talking for that long, you're liable to say some things that maybe you wish you hadn't have said. But there's a limit. That extra 5% and the patterns evident in that 5% are concerning.
Yeah, this is weird because he's saying the problem with so I basically prefaced this entire video with saying like a lot of video essayists have this sort of bravado to them that because they have like hours upon hours, weeks upon weeks to prepare for every single segment, that everything they say is precisely tailored to sound as perfect as it possibly can. With live stream format, you can't do that. You're just, everything is going with the wind. You have to be good with your words. You have to say things profoundly at the moment you say them, because if you don't, then you're going to be looking like a fool immediately. There's no other editing this and the third. So in that sense, saying that they should be perfect at all times or just not exist, either one, it seems like the only way the solution to solve this problem here, is a bit weird. And also, again, he makes 2-3 hour long content, so he doesn't have an issue with 2 or 3 hour long content. It goes back to just not liking live streaming as a format, or not liking political live streamers play video games and debate. It is very odd. Damn it, man. Like this does suck how this is going so far, because I mentioned before, I did like all this like an hour into this video. It was a really good hour solid into this video, because he was basically describing the origins of BreadTube, why they're there, and while it is a very wide space, there is some racism within the BreadTube. He's not calling anybody racist, but there is racism because racism exists across the board, and he should address that. But I feel like what he's going to address here is the out of context clips for a lot of streamers, which I will admit, out of context clips suck, right? They do suck. You should avoid them. However, there's some instances where you can't. So if you can't avoid those instances because people just are begging to see that shit just all over the place, then you might as well just continue on what you're doing without worrying that in your mind, honestly. It also depends on what the context is, right? If the context is very, we'll get to that. He'll probably explain later on. Let's see.
And this is because while the ideological basis of these guys on paper is good, the energy and rhetoric and vibe of these guys isn't. The scary reality is that the very homogenous nature of their fan bases, who are fresh out of radical hate-filled movements, and the way these people react and respond and behave on these streams, from a distance, when you see a debate bro debating a white supremacist, you can't easily tell who is who.
That's fucking weird, though. Like, isn't that weird? Like, you would, okay, this is weird because, like, you will spend a video essay hours upon hours making a video, perfectly crafting every single word, and it would be on the concept of racism, a bad thing, right? But you're talking about racism, which is a topic that is bad, right? Racism is a bad topic. But when people debate about it live about racism to people who are racist, and you see two people yelling and you can't tell the difference, that's bad, not the deciphering of the racist topic itself. But so again, I might watch the Shark video later on where he discusses how debate bros are a bit more manageable than what FD Signifier thinks they are. But I want to address this video by itself because I haven't watched this part of the video, and also it greatly ties in with the whole Professor Flowers shit I was covering in the last video as well. So it's an all amalgamation. But this is a really weird segment as well. And I genuinely don't understand. The only argument you could possibly make here, like I mentioned before, is if you are against the concept of debate entirely. And if you do debate and you sound like someone who's mad and angry, guess who's also mad and angry? Alt-righters. You look like an alt-righter, and that's bad. But you just so happen to be leftist, so therefore we have to.
Like one thing that I noticed, and I've talked about a little bit like on Twitter and stuff, is I don't want to be like I'm old school or something, but like back in the early 2010s, there were all the like anti-SJWs and all those people, and a lot of these like white leftists are like indistinguishable from them. Like they talk the same, like.
Ooh, I got chills because I'm happy somebody said it.
Like sometimes it's literally like word for word, like they use the same arguments, like it's wild.
The same tactics.
Yeah.
And this problem with debate, bro.
Okay, So this reminds me of when Vosh was debating non-compete, and Vosh said, did you know that the Jews actually had more control of the banks than was originally thought? Back then, it wasn't a conspiracy, and the non-compete left. And a person like FD Signifier, a person like non-compete, would see that on his face and go, okay, so Vosh is purporting and supporting and promoting a Nazi ideology, which, like, I don't understand how he can get the concept of de-radicalization and how he can get that relatability as a concept can help de-radicalization, how de-radicalization is a constantly moving and ever evolving job. It constantly needs to be done correctly. But at the same time, people who actively participate in this thing he approves of are bad for doing it because they sound like the radicalized people that are trying to de-radicalize. It's very odd. Like I don't know, like it feels like they're making their own enemy on purpose to fight against. Like it's like a straw man essentially. Come on, man.
Bros in their fandom who understand make up a very significant chunk of left tube viewing, including my own, is the problem of most white left tube, both creators and consumers, which is for all of the theory and research and outward rejection of white supremacy on paper, the vast majority have not taken the time to dismantle the white racial frame through which they see the world. Even the ones that aren't technically white still operate very well within a white racial framework. In fact, this white racialized framework is kind of great significance in terms of how they maintain credibility with their audience and their opposition. The thing I think a lot of white perpetually online leftists don't fully engage with is that they come from the exact same communities as their neo-Nazi fascist alt-right enemies. If not for a coin flip, these are the same people. They played on the same sports teams. They ate at the same lunch tables. If Destiny and JonTron went to high school together, they would have likely been best friends until maybe they went away to college and one took, I don't know, philosophy and the other one sociology. They, and a lot of what makes up the white online left, have yet to fully engage with the following question. What was it inside you or inside your worldview that ever made fascism appealing in the
See, this is a problem too because what this insinuates is that, well, again, white people are one stone toss away from being racist and fascist. I mean, Brittany from Politically Provoked is a bad example because that's literally what happened to her. But like, regardless, to solely challenge someone's philosophy as to what they believe in is a good concept. I do believe that. And also on top of that, there is a lot of white people who at times are insensitive towards other issues that aren't related to them because they are white. These are two true statements. However, to conflate the two isn't necessarily the most truthful painting of the picture. Mainly because it seems like the narrative you're spinning is that since there are a lot of white leftists, their belief system must have been based off of what flavor cereal they had in the morning. It's just a innocuous coin flip decision. Like they didn't come to this conclusion because they believe it. They came to this conclusion because, well, it seemed like it's cool and hip at the moment. And again, Black conservatives is a perfect example of this. Like, I feel like the flip side of this, but he would understand his argument. The flip side of this would be understanding misogyny and misogynoir in the Black community and understanding that you are just one coin toss away from being a misogynist piece of shit because you're not a woman. You want someone like to be a woman. So why are you not misogynist in the first place? Right? In this point of view, what we're seeing here is that when it comes to what you believe in, if you're not directly tied or attached to the situation at hand that you believe into directly, it can be hard because you're not as attached to it. But at the same time, it's easier for you to advocate and push this message out to other people because you're not as attached or emotionally drawn down by it. So therefore, there's a good and downside to this. Well, he's not trying to paint a picture of both. He's only painting a picture of, since you're not attached to that community directly, you are more likely to be more detached to its more insular issues, which, again, that's something we could talk about, but to tie that with all debate bros because they yell a lot, because they use their positions that are correct to fight against other people is weird.
first place? It's not just Sargon of Akkad videos. It's not just that you were a nerd and a social outcast.
Also, being a former fascist who changed and questioning why they're fascist in the first place in a way of condemning them, that's also weird as fuck too. Because if you agree that de-radicalization is a great thing, which again, he said multiple times, a great thing, then why are you mad at people who have been de-radicalized? If your whole point is that de-radicalizing is a good thing in the first place.
So you like gaming or you had some trouble growing up. Critical race theory, which again is something that almost all of these guys did videos on this year, tells us what it is. It is the construction of a white racial frame, aka white habitus. And just as a quick aside, did any of you watch a critical race theory video not made by a white creator? If you searched it on YouTube right now, according to your algorithm, could you even find one?
Okay, so this is the problem. He mentioned in the video that a lot of black content creators aren't getting that much clout and much fame. This is a very complex and complicated problem, mainly because of three things, right? Number one, I would say, since there are a lot more white people, the likelihood of creators that are going to be white will also be more leaning towards white people, right? Due to demographics, right? Number two, it's a bit more expensive to start a YouTube channel or anything like this. So therefore, since more black people like to be poor, the already low demographic of black people that exists on this planet, let alone country, greatly alters to just like almost half, if not lower than that, because it takes a certain amount of income to even make a channel. And then on top of that, we have promotions. So the thing is with people like FG Signifier here, and a lot of other video essays to combat this concept of debate bro aesthetics and the third, or people who just criticize a lot of things, they don't address people who aren't white. Whenever they criticize leftist creators, in a sense they hate, they criticize the most popular ones because they want clicks and views themselves. But coincidentally, criticize the only popular ones are leaving out the black, the non-white content creators, which are abundance amount, the trans content creators that exist that also resemble these same exact attributes on a smaller scale because they have a less audience. But the thing is, again, a perfect example of this whole video is a perfect example of this. The thumbnail, the main topic of the video, and how you address this video was all surrounded around white people being at the forefront and them not being as good as we want them to be. If we just focus on also pointing out and criticizing black people or other content creators who do this shit as well, they can get their name out there and get more recognition. Like, for example, he only recognized Shark30, a black debate bro, for lack of better words, who was on the same level as Vosh and all them because Shark was watching his video. If it wasn't for that, then it wouldn't have cross his radar. I'm not bashing whatsoever. I'm attacking his ideas, obviously. But this video does come off as a bit anti-white. It's the wrong word. It's the wrong word. But it does come off as more preaching in a sense of white people are bad and their debate culture that they're fostering can lead us down to racism. I feel that's the vibe I'm getting here.
White people for the first time in history are being racialized. We are all racialized, but white people have never had to know that about themselves. It's just been a thing that hangs in the air, right? So as a result, you assume that your experience is a default. You assume that, so even if you were the most well-read, the most well-respected, whatever, even when I was watching these videos and stuff before, I was just like, yeah, I can take some of the points of some of these philosophers, but you need to know that some of them were the ones who set the precedent for things like phrenology and eugenics. You know what I mean? We need to know that some of these folks were most likely very racist.
Eduardo Bonilla Silva describes white habitus as essentially the habitat from which whiteness is understood, created, and reinforced. It's the social, economic, and ideological living conditions of white people, often greatly segregated along racial lines, and as such, there is a development of cultural and moral norms centered around whiteness. And apart.
Yeah, what I just said. He said what I said, but a bit more fancy. White people aren't as attached to these issues, so therefore they're not going to be directly related to them and understand every single intricacy that possibly exists because they aren't of that culture. But at the same time, that makes them more likely to be a positive likely be an advocate that can reach out to more people because they look like the people they're trying to advocate to. You know what I'm saying?
From people of color who are often, as a byproduct of this centering of whiteness, relegated to a lower status and othered. So even with the best intentions, the behavior and viewpoints born out of this space is still going to be rooted in racist frameworks unless the concept of whiteness.
Whoa. Run it.
Intentions, the behavior and viewpoints around whiteness, and apart from people of color who are often, as a byproduct of this centering of whiteness, relegated to a lower status and othered. So even with the best intentions, the behavior and viewpoints born out of this space is still going to be rooted in racist frameworks unless the concept of whiteness is addressed. Essentially, if you read Marx and Trotsky and Gramsci and
so he's saying because debate bro culture is a majority white culture thing, it will be framed as the white viewpoint and will always be racist because of his frame of his white viewpoint. So if they just viewed the white viewpoint as what it is and provided intersectional context behind that viewpoint, then would it no longer be racist? Or is it racist because it is reflecting the white counterpart of this culture, the conservative culture? That part I don't really know about for sure. Because if it is the former and that white people existing and talking the way they do, which is similar to other white people, and then come to the conclusions as white people was racist, that's a bit weird. If it's the latter, I
what you want to do, Ski, and whomever else, but not Du Bois, Fanon, Hooks, Crenshaw, etc., you might be a leftist white supremacist.
Okay, this is just stupid. Because basically what you're saying is, I don't know the black philosophers, I am a white supremacist. Okay, I will say this too, like the weird thing about this video is like he does address that black people will get less clout in the algorithm and overall media because they're black, because they don't fit the current zeitgeist or the current, trend of what black people look like that we accept. So therefore, they're not going to be widely accredited, right? He addresses that, but at the same time, he uses that same system that oppresses black people to say, if you don't know the black people that I know of, then you are a white supremacist. That happens to be debate, bro. Like he's having his cake and eating it too. Like it's a both scenario there. The thing is too with the marks and shit. Like I don't know any of it. So like I win, right? I basically win. I win. I do win. Hell yeah, buddy.
And thus, this colors the nature of leftist content and inadvertently makes things dangerous for the marginalized voices that get caught in the wake of this highly toxic, highly negative energy. I don't want to go into the depths of the recent and not so recent drama that has been seen in this debate bro space, where black and sometimes even queer creators have had extremely negative interactions with some of these debate bros and their fandoms, but it's not.
You have to provide context to that statement. If you leave that statement generally in the air, what this sounds like is whenever a debate bro is interacting with any marginalized person, they're going to get harassed, harangued, and hate slurs thrown at them. If you don't provide extra context, you're painting them as bad as you possibly can, just like the thing you were trying to avoid to do when you first started this original video. Like when you first second the video, because first second the video, you were saying, I don't want to call these people racist because that's going to scare them off. But here, at this point, you're saying any marginalized person that's ever faced them, women included, have faced a massive amount of harassment campaign. Like you have context. Bosch fans say context.
Not good, and it's bigger than the stories you know about. These individuals are often goaded into appearing on these guys' streams in the first place, usually not understanding the sycophantic nature of these spaces. I personally have had more than a few people request that I appear on some of these streams, to which I always let you know that is never happening. These creators are treated to hostility at best and outright harassment and disrespect at worst. And the fans of the debate bros cheer this on, often taking it upon themselves to go on harassment campaigns long after these appearances occur. And this is because this is the same fan base that 5 or 6 years ago was watching Augie anti-SJW alt-right content. And so the same tactics and energy used during Gamergate, used during the attacks on Anita Sarkeesian, and used during the rise of Trump are reproduced here, just on a more insular scale. The debate bros represent a much more.
This is weird too, because unironically, this is just cancel culture, except debate bros doing cancel culture, right? Like it is very fucking odd. I will say that sure, debate bro people have fans, me included, who are more likely to be very willing to bite at the target they sink their teeth in, right? If it is genuine harassment, you should address it as such. But if it's just tons of criticisms, just saying, hey, you're wrong, just unplug, walk out. It's like, just mute the thread. I don't know what's like. If it's genuine criticism, like legitimate, like your points are stupid, here you go, dumb fuckhead. It's just like, it's not that bad. Like, I don't know what else to say. I really don't. Like, I will say, one of the main things about making content like this is that you are trying to debunk the bad things that exist in this planet. So you are basically being a debate bro by proxy by debating, for example, the algorithm. You are debating the unknown paradox of the algorithm, which is forever evolving, and we will never know anything about because it just continuously goes above and beyond our heads, right? almost incomprehensible. We can understand very basic and base knowledge, but how intricate the system is, we will never fully in depth find out unless, of course, we can get the entire mechanism how that's this and third unfolds, right? You're unable to unravel that and basically debate against people saying you're just mad that you don't have any views. You are also substantiating your points, right? You get that as a concept. That right there, that is literally debate bro concept and culture, because you're fighting against a point that's a well-known point that if you work hard enough, you will get stuff done. And there are barriers for you being black that stops you from working as hard as you possibly can to get stuff done, do the next result, do the merit, right? And you understand that as a concept. But when someone else tries to debate that live, then it's wrong for you. Then that's where you draw the line. Then that's where you're like, hey, whoa. If you say something, I will say this too. Creators, if they don't want to come on, just don't go on. Right? Just don't. If you don't want to debate someone, just don't. But if you are going to debate someone and you have no idea what the fuck you're getting into, you're an idiot. You're a fucking like how. First of all, if you're going to talk to someone on a subject that they clearly disagree with you on, without looking them up at all and seeing what they're about before you get on the subject, I'm not saying you're at fault for any harassment campaign coming on your way, but you should have done research before even going onto the topic, go on this debate panel in the first place. I don't get that argument in particular, because you voluntarily have to go to the debate and voluntarily talk about the subject that you defend voluntarily. Like, that one's fucking weird. Again, no harassment whatsoever. No harassment. Jesus Christ, man. You know what? Fuck it. I am ready for a conservative anti-SJW concept to come back. I'm ready for it. Because if this means these guys have to step their game up and they just can't say that topics that are bad should not be discussed because discussing them could validate opinions about bad topics, then yeah, fine. Step your game up.
More obvious problem in terms of this leftist content space, but they are indicative of the reality for black content creators as a whole. This is why I bristle at the way so many white leftists I encounter are so eager to try to separate themselves from white liberals. Because from my perspective as a person of color on the outside looking in, you don't look that different.
Okay. You mean they're both white? You don't mean like them being white, therefore they're not as good of a leftist, therefore they're both white liberals. I hope you don't mean the latter, because if you mean the latter, not the former, that's really fucking weird.
So much of this white leftist movement is just as populist a movement as any reactionary political movement that we've seen in recent time. Thankfully, some creators like Bad Mouse and John DeDuncan have done videos about these.
Bad Mouse. I need to watch a Bad Mouse video. Huh. Why are these screenshots so bad quality? Well, I'm nitpicking, sorry.
Issues. Bad Mouse even cited an amazing essay by former Black Panther Lorenzo Kumboa Irvin called The Progressive Plantation that really hits many of the targets on their head. There's something very wrong here. These white middle-class so-called radicals who have never suffered, been oppressed, or been forced to risk life and limb need to learn to listen to those who have.
Okay. The first problem with this quote: listening to marginalized people is good to garner experience and understand where they're coming from. If you have any vagueness or fogginess in the situation, if you're unclear of what you're talking about, right? It's like talking to a doctor about coronavirus. Like you can fully grasp where they're coming from, why it is, what's going on, getting everything, all depth analysis, right? But does the doctor have the wherewithal or the debate tactic to talk about his subject to conservatives and say how bad being anti-vax is? They might not, all right? They have the knowledge, but they might not be able to flourish debate-wise, right? So I feel like the same applies here. If a black person gives you all this knowledge, intellectual media, for example, intellectual media will talk to Vosh, and she gave some extra context in between black nationalism and separatism. She set the record straight, so whenever he would encounter another black person, he has that forethought in the back of his mind to reference that whenever those subjects come back in mind. So therefore, using black people or marginalized people and their experience to therefore make that as extra foundational stepping stone to solidify your point and make it more of a salient point can make your arguments a lot more pungent, for lack of better words there, than what they originally would have been without the context of the people who are marginalized that you're talking about. So you still need both of the middle class radicals and the people who are oppressed to combine to fight against the people who are stupid and idiots.
They need to recognize that they do not have all the answers, and it is only because of their white skin privilege that they can even articulate the political dimensions of these social problems.
What? They need to recognize they do not have all the answers. Basically what I was saying there, and it's only because of their white skin, privilege. White skin, that is a really weird statement there. That they, just say white privilege. White skin privilege makes it seem like it's like some shiny Pokemon or some shit. That they can even articulate the particular political dimensions of these social problems. They have analysis with the paralysis. Oh, the detachment. Okay.
They have analysis with paralysis. Further, the apparent strategies of these groups is to chase after neo-Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, the Church of the Creator, and others.
Not necessarily. I would say strawmanning them into saying their main goal of de-radicalization is to target Nazis, Ku Klux Klan members, and church shooters is weird. I feel like their main goal, after watching a bunch of these motherfuckers, is not only to de-radicalize, but help solidify arguments of leftism and help other people understand what they're talking about, right? Because you might not always be fighting against Nazis every single debate. You can be fighting against regular conservatives. You can be fighting against your own leftist content creators who just happen to be, disagreeing on a couple topics. Like solidifying the arguments through debate rhetoric can help you make a statement that would originally by itself just be a wall of text. If you summarize it and made it more of a, a more jovial manner that's easy to absorb and spew out back and forth, then it's a lot easier to win over your opponents, to convince other people. Because this wall of text isn't convincing somebody who could be in the Nazis, who could be conservative, who could be a skeptical liberal about your content, of how their position is wrong. This isn't going to convince them. You have to solidify, you have to summarize and perfectly surmise everything what you're saying without fully saying everything that you know. You have to be able to deliver a message in a format that is palatable, able to be absorbed. Basically what I'm saying is like, it's never this. Like you just can't just read shit, read theory, understand it, know that you're smart, and feel like people should get to your conclusion as well. Because how would people get into the position of reading this theory in the first place if they weren't de-radicalized? By someone who synthesized this entire shit into a much more agreeable or a much more easy to absorb message.
Others to upstage them and disrupt their racist events. Although I fully understand that we must confront fascist paramilitary movements, this alone is a flawed strategy, however, and no more eliminates racism than dancing in the streets. But it makes white people feel like they're accomplishing something.
That's weird too, because I'm not white and I want to do this shit. So am I no longer a part of this entire scope because I want to accomplish so they are conflating being white and de-radicalization with one another. That's so weird. Why? What? Like, again, you can have the idea and concept of white people being detached from the subject to talk about, but if the end goal of those white people is leading to less racism, is leading to less fascists, is leading to less conservative values that could deteriorate our nation, then it's still good. So to conflate them with being as bad as people who do nothing with their time and just dance in the street in comparison to eliminating racism is downplaying every positive effect they possibly could have on somebody being de-radicalized.
And it certainly helps with recruitment. But as a person of color,
and also delegitimizing radicalization as well,
I do not feel this movement in any way ensures my safety from violence by white-ring paramilitaries or the police. At the
these motherfuckers ain't whatever.
End of the day, for a lot of white leftists, this isn't about politics. It's about identity. It's about belonging. It's about not being like those guys, which I get. But for black creators, when this is the community that we need to rely on for viability on this platform, it's like we can't even effectively participate in discussions that are explicitly about our own survival.
Okay. You know what it is though? It reminds me of when women would see like men talk about feminism and like rape statistics and the third, and they would get mad at them talking about those shits because they're so flippant with rape statistics, sexual assault, domestic abuse. And I feel like it's the same thing for a lot of black people as well. Well, not a lot of black people, but like decent black people where like they see a bunch of leftist content creators debating their own existence constantly, and that does suck. That can be tragic. That can be depressing, right? But in this instance, I feel like what he's saying is he wants Black people to be able to be in the space without having to debate their existence. But the problem with that is people don't want us to exist, period. So if there's a choice between debating us existing as a concept is a good thing or letting that just flourish because doing that makes me uncomfortable, I would much rather debate the point of my existence. Like, why just shy away from it? Why do I want to insulate myself in a space where I can just be safe from all harm and know that harm is being reduced because I want it to be reduced because I think it's wrong? Like, there has to be people that want to confront it, and if you want to confront yourself, you have to confront it as well. And again, if you don't want to see this shit, then don't be a part of it and be in your own insular group. Be in your own group of people who don't want to talk about this racist shit. Because guess what? If you're going to say Black people are the only people that don't say inflammatory shit about Black people, that's kind of wrong because Black conservatives exist, which I think you addressed in this video. I'm not sure if you do or not. So it is weird. It's very weird. It's giving I require all white people to know everything about Black people before they speak up about issues, and then even if they find out everything about Black people, it's still not good enough because they're white. Like, I feel that's like the same. I feel that's the sentiment I'm getting here.
But here's the thing: to throw folks a bone, it's not as bad as to be hopeless. I mean, I got this plaque. Where's my plaque? I got this plaque at the end of the day, right? So, everything's okay. Let's go back to that Bo Burnham video, which again saw an increase in viewership click rate when I took my black face off the thumbnail. And I know the success of that video which is responsible for this plaque, is not really due to my opinions as a Black man.
Okay. I think he's gonna, let me see, is there anything else? Or is that the rest of the video? So it stops here. No, Hank Green coming up. So, okay, he was mentioning that being Black does reduce the algorithm. I was talking about this beforehand. Like, being Black does reduce your chances of being seen as a palatable figure, blah, 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 racism. I feel like a problem with using the Bo Burnham video in particular is because Bo Burnham is a very, 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 very popular figure. And if you look at the rest of your channel with videos without you or with you in the thumbnail, we can compare the two, right? We can say, oh, wow, look at, like, okay, I'm gonna give you an example. So let's go Bo Burnham here. Bo Burnham, massive figure, just absolutely massive, right? Just phenomenally massive, right? So the chances of blowing up an algorithm are like insanely high. And the thing too, if you click on the preview screen, there's a Black guy right there. So two things can be true at once. I'm trying to say, like, yes, being Black in the thumbnail, removing yourself out of it does help you, but at the same time, it's also a popular video. But what I'm trying to get at is like that as a concept as well. It does explain like a lot of the issues with this video's framework, the last hour's video, the framework, I mean, because it's solely based on the fact that he's seeing this one side that exists and that it's the only side that exists for him instead of looking at the bigger picture, right? Again, I'll say it again. The one side he's looking at is that white people are the majority of debate bros, and they're very aggressive and they look like alt-righters and they de-radicalize a lot of people, and therefore de-radicalized people are going to be fans of people who used to be or resemble alt-righters who are yelling nonstop being aggressive. And therefore, that's bad. That's the end conclusion, right? But the bigger picture is that he mentions as well. These debate bros are front runners, soldiers to fighting for de-radicalization, but also for strengthening our ideas, for helping us understand the things we believe in and making them as strong as they are. Without fully giving them that much credit and then understanding why it's appealing in the first place, you get this picture of white debate bros using their identity as a way to hop on a trend of political correctness instead of trying to actually advocate for change in this world. Oh boy.
Explicitly, but the gravitational pull of Bo Burnham's inside that boosted my video in the algorithm. While the click rate on this video went up when I took my black face off, the thing is the engagement stayed pretty much the same. When they actually saw a black face come on the screen to start talking and heard what I had to say, people did not click away. This is why it's implicit bias. I mean, I'm trying to throw y'all a bone, like, feel me here. What this means is that when actively presented with the conscious opportunity to act upon racist bias, a lot of white consumers didn't. And again, this is not empirical, this is anecdotal, this is a small sample size, but that's how this is supposed to work. The theory is that if we can engage with dismantling and be intentional about addressing the innate issues with white identity, you can do better. You know, be anti-racist. But that gets us back to the issue I brought up in Bo Burnham. For so many white people, whether they be left-leaning, right-leaning, or ostensibly progressive, those innate biases are deeply rooted, and addressing them effectively often means interrogating whiteness in a way that many white people aren't willing or able to do, because it means decentering their perspective or even ceding their perspective and power to people of color in order to reframe it, to see the ways in which whiteness helps reinforce inequality. Further, this wouldn't be a one-time cathartic fixing and reckoning of the problem. Racism is an ongoing, persistent problem that will require ongoing and persistent effort.
I think the recognition of the complexity here it sometimes isn't allowed, where maybe we want to be like labeling people as bad people because that makes us feel superior to them, or we're like terrified that we're bad people, so we're trying to like simplify things down to like black and white, like I don't have any racist bones in my body, and it's like, or it's not about your bones. What is it specifically that I have to do where I can stop thinking about this so much? And like that's the only thing you can't do. And I'm sorry, like that's the bad news, is that until you are a dead person, you're gonna have to think about race. Like we live in a country that has a deeply ingrained racial caste system, and that's not going away. And so we will have to work on it for our whole lives.
But so many white people fear engaging with that effort because white supremacy has conditioned white people to only see racism as a moral issue, which makes it very easy to avoid culpability in participating in a racist system. You know, there's only one innate social fear that is unique to white people in this country, and that's being called or seen as a racist. It's the only accusation that, if it sticks, has real consequences for white.
Yeah, being called a racist with a hard R is the equivalent of being called any slur to anybody of any race. Fuck the cracker discourse, bro. Call someone a racist, their whole fucking zeitgeist just shatters. It's fucking hilarious. Okay, I don't disagree with any of this shit here, because clearly I hate white supremacy, black power. I just don't like this concept of conflating what you're saying with debate bro culture, because there's a lot of white people in there. That is really weird to me. That's very odd, very yikesy right there. Overall, again, I will say this. Overall, the video was good. It's fantastic. I'll recommend this video to anybody. I just had a problem with how he addressed debate bro culture and what his true problems were with the video. I think it ends after this. I will continue it, but let's see.
White people uniquely, and at the same time is not in any way under their control. That's why you hear white people say stuff like stop playing the race card. And because of this one major threat, white people have developed numerous ways to avoid that label. So many ways, it's as if nobody's really racist at all. Anyone who gets labeled as a racist has to really, really, really mean it. And even then,
yeah, the rest of this probably has nothing to do with debate bros anymore. Let's see. This is channel shout out. Okay, yeah, so that's it. That's what I did. Yeah, I feel like if we're unable to defend our ideas, either aggressively or not, in a one-to-one live format or in person at all, then I feel like we're never going to be able to stop the Overton window from shifting back to the right until they give up their power and end up falling like we're falling right now. It just seems depressing. I'm doom proposing right now. I need some copium. Send a couple things away, please, sir. Thank you. Have a nice day.